You wanted a show way of cutting hay one time?
I wouldn't like to be cutting 200 acres on it. You have to hold it a certain way, you'd be sticking it into the ground all day.
Oh, you would.
It's very easy to stick it into the ground.
So then you'd come on in the day after and shake it out with your fork. Or turn it with a rake. And shake out again till you got it dry. And it had to be put into cocks like those. Now, there'd be better cocks than those. You know, there'd be far bigger cocks. And to be put into cocks like that and to be left out in the field for the fattening of it.
A good fattening.
It was all labour intensive, you know, like. We'd say people had great pride in their work that time. You know, people would be commenting on the fellow that couldn't make a good cock. Jimmy Higgins lived down the road there now, and he said there was a neighbour of his, and he was a thundering good hand at making a bad cock.
Well, that wasn't Tom Leonard, anyway.
No. Tom Leonard, the last merchant, he'd be making a cock. He'd bring out dig in dig stand, and he'd make the cock to the shape of dig, narrow at the bottom, out, and in at the top.
And then tied? You said they would tie it with that rope?
Yeah. It had to be tied or the wind would bring it. If you got a windy evening, to blow them apart again, you know.
That's great.
Graveyards are an important feature of Irish towns and villages and are lasting memorials to families associated with the area. Historian Mary B. Timoney talks about the unique features of some of the headstones in the old ballintubber graveyard.
6 years or longer I have been coming to Ballintubber. First of all, I was going to do a very simple thing of recording the graveyard, but at this stage it has become a book of over 500 pages where I take each stone pre-1850, describe it, also trace where the stonemason came from if it was possible, or where his other work is in the county. Now, the stonemasons, I'm calling them stonemasons because it's an easier phrase to use. Really, they're not masons, they were stone cutters, because the stone cutters were paid the highest amount of money. And not only that, but if you were a stone cutter, it was only members of your family were allowed to enter the trade. The stonemasons, this was not their main work. This is always a sideline. This is something that you did in the winter evenings. This was the extra few pounds on the side. Their main work was building houses. They built houses, they built churches, they built bridges, they built mills. They were builders. Headstones only come into the country in the late 17th century. Now, I'm going to talk about this specific stone because there's a long story in it. The design on it, first of all, you've got the IHS. All of the pre-1850 stones, I think nearly every single one of them have the IHS on. The IHS is the monogram of Christ, and it's coming from the first 3 letters in Greek. What we've got here is, we've got an IHS, you can barely see it. Well, there's the I, there's the H, and the S is behind this. And very unusual, on the H, now very often you do get a cross on the H, and that developed from the Jesuits. But this is not a cross, this is a crucifixion. Very, very unusual. And there's the crucified Christ, and he has his hands out, and he has a wig on him. And the hands come out, and underneath here, you've got 2 angels. And the angels are holding up chalices, and what they're trying to do is to catch the blood coming from Christ's hands. And this is a medieval symbol, and it has lasted, and this is where this stone dates to 1752, right? It's a medieval symbol. It is rarely seen. We have it in Kinsale. It's down in Ennis Abbey on a stone in medieval times. But here we're talking about 1752. And where the stone comes from, or where the whole pattern and design comes from, it's coming out of Kilkenny. This stonemason, and his name is the Mason of Grove, Grove, he left Kilkenny sometime after 1749, and he's up here by 1752. Altogether in the whole county, he carves about 9 of these stones. It's erected to Lachlan Carty. Lachlan Carty died in 1739. So you're talking about 13 years later, the family put up a headstone. So this mason came here to build something. Now, what house he came to build, I don't know, but certainly he had to be promised an awful lot of money. There's various ways I can recognise his work, the style of his carving, the style of his figures that he carves. Also, his lettering, that his letter E is very different from any other stonemason's E. And also he has a particular way from doing his 5. The other thing to say, why Roscommon has such a rich amount of memorials. The one thing is, you've got your grass, and if you go into any field in Roscommon, we'll exclude north of Boyle, we'll forget that area, and you dig down to a foot, the first thing you meet is limestone. There's a very good limestone here. That limestone also produces a very high quality grass. Now we're going to look at the next Carty one. Now this is erected to Philip. He died in 1801. It is a very beautiful spinning wheel. The details of it, Albert Siggins published it, I think in the 90s, sometime in the 1990s in the Roscommon journals. And it's an extremely unusual spinning wheel. Of all the spinning wheels that are in the National Museum in Thurlock Park, there is only one similar to this. And the difference in it is, if you look at the board there, it's not a straight board, it's fiddle-shaped, and that is unusual. And Albert sourced a photograph in Castlecoot of a woman spinning at such a wheel. It's far easier to cut that. All you did was get the chisel and you went around it. But here you're talking about far more work. There's a design on it, you've got your IHS, you've got these designs, you've got a design here, and underneath you've got, again, we're talking about, it's an occupational stone. And we've got an axe, not like the axes you'd see today, but it's there. You've got the compass. Now, today we call them dividers, but they called them compasses back then. You've got the set square there as well. It's to a carpenter. One of the extraordinary things which you find in Roscommon, you certainly don't find in many of the counties around the country, is that they initial their headstones. And the initials not always are put down neatly at the bottom. They can be up here. This is the earliest date we've got, and it's 1634. And it's COC, so therefore it's an O'Connor. It's a floriated cross, which would be correct for the time. And it's got 1634, 9F. Now, the O'Connors interpret it as being the 9th of February when he died. So that's it. This is the mausoleum. This stone would predate your mausoleum. The mausoleum comes later, right?
It would have been built from the grave, around the plot.
Around the plot.
Yeah.
The O'Connors, you've got your castle above there,
Yeah.
and the O'Connors were there. And your medieval church was here, and this was where they buried. And because of that, it became what I call a high status graveyard, that other people regarded as being important to be buried in Ballintubber. Underneath here, we've got a mermaid. I remember when I first came in here and said, well, look, what's a mermaid doing in Ballintubber? You're so far away at the sea. And the reason why the mermaid is there is because it's the crest of the Byrne family. It's a lovely image.
The local railway station in the townland of Clayboy was the scene of many farewells, and a famous son of nearby Ballymoe made the first stage of his journey from his native homeland from this railway station.
We're here at Ballymoe station in the townland of Clayboy, a station that opened in 1861, and it served the whole community and for many miles around here with goods station, and also transported livestock and passengers as well. And one of our famous sons, Edward Flanagan, who left this railway station in 1904 to travel to the United States of America, where he was ordained a priest in 1912, and he set up Boys Town in 1917. This here station was a hype of activity, and from speaking to many people that would have travelled from here, going back over the years and speaking to a man that I'd known very well, Pat Nally. His father served as retired here as station master in 1965, and he spoke fondly of his memories here, and it's a place, I suppose, where there's many fond memories, but many very sad memories as well. Many person left the station here and never returned. It was only just 13 years after the famine that the station opened, and there was a lot of depression around at that time.
Father Flanagan and my late grandmother would have gone to school together, gone to school in Drimmy Temple, Ballymoe. Back in those days, as we speak today here at Ballymoe Station, it would have been a very important link in transporting the necessary groceries to my late grandmother's shop in Ballintubber, which she ran successfully with her late husband, James Kinney, my grandfather. Most of what was needed in those days was transported by train here to the station in Ballymoe, and subsequently would be collected and brought to her grocery shop in Ballintubber.
Well, I am based here in the parish of Ballintubber, Ballymoe, and this is my 4th year here, and I got to know about the great love for Father Flanagan, that he was born in this area in Leibeg, which is within the parish, and went baptised in the church in Ballymoe, and received Holy Communion there, First Holy Communion, and went to Drimmy Temple Primary School and grew up. He was one of a family of 11. His father was a herdsman, and he was rather delicate as a youngster, and he didn't go to school, did not go to school for some time. And then after primary school, he was sent to Summerhill College in Sligo. So he left, finished his studies there, and went to America in 1904, and he was ordained about 8 years later, and he went to the Diocese of Omaha in Nebraska. Father Flanagan is now a servant of God. He's called a servant of the church, you know, and all the documentation we heard, the latest we heard through our Bishop Kevin on a visit recently to Rome with the Irish bishops, that the documentation has all been approved. It has got the green light, and now it's the next stage is miracles. So already we have one is authenticated, and they may be looking for a second one, but there are a number to be investigated, and we're quietly confident that that day is coming, because Father Flanagan is very much a prophet, an apostle for our time. He was one who saw the dignity of young people. So his big philosophy of life and motivation was, no boy is born bad. It's due to the environment and the lack of, I suppose, a good example or encouragement, that they turn to drugs or violence or robbery. And so we believe then, that's why I say that he is a saint for our time, and we're hoping Pope Francis and all involved with the process of canonization will put Father Flanagan forward.
Over the generations, Ballintubber, like many villages in the west of Ireland, would have seen American wakes taking place in the homes of departing immigrants. Mildred Byrne and Pat Garvey lead the reenactment of a traditional American wake in the village.
The reason it was called American Wake was because it was kind of a party, but the son or the daughter was leaving to go to America. And in a lot of cases, 99% of the cases, they would never come back. And the idea was to have a farewell party, a rip and fine party, where the neighbours would come in, they'd sing and they'd dance, they'd cry. By all means, they'd cry. The mum and dad was always crying because the son or daughter was going. But in the process of that, the neighbours made it easy for them with the dancing or the singing. And some places, they used to have the criers. where people would come in and the queenos, they used to call them, and they were criers. That was, the poor mum and dad was so exhausted they couldn't cry anymore, and they would cry for the sadness of them going. But they'd have a real party, and they'd have the pipe, and they'd have the cigarettes, and they'd have snuff for the women, and of course they'd have the cakes, and they'd have the boxty and the potato cakes, and that would be all made during the day, and the neighbours would bring it in and all that sort of thing. So that went on all night long until broad daylight, and they'd be going home then at like the people, the visitors that would come wouldn't go until the people that was the man or the woman that was going away to America. They would get into the pony and trap and go away, and they would follow them down the road in, or the boat in, or the case may be, until they went out of sight. And that was, the mum and dad couldn't let them go. They couldn't bear to have the last hug out of them.
That's right.
Would you think that that's kind of it, Pat?
That's the way it was.
Yes.
Sure. I mean, and I met them myself, and that's the way it was with them. I met them that never came back.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And when I was in the States myself, and that was the way it was with them, and that's all they could remember is back. And what used to make me smile was that everything was so good, they thought.
Yes, of
you
course,
know,
of
they
course.
had a vision of Ireland that I could never figure out how they come with that vision, because to me it wasn't the vision
not at all.
they thought it
Not
was.
at all.
But I suppose it was a loss of being in the country that they loved.
Of course.
You know.
And you see, there was no communication first. There were 6 weeks on the sea, and then they had to write a letter, and then they had to send it, and it took another week or two for that to come, and that was the first communication they had with the poor mum and dad, and sure their heart was broke. But the night of the party, or the American wake, was a night never to be forgotten for either the parents or the people that was going, or the neighbours.
And then, of course, they used to bring the basket of food that have the homemade cake, that have eggs, that have a soda turf, and they'd have like maybe other things that they put into the basket. But this was the general idea, that it took them so long to go, that have the bread and that have the eggs. The boiled eggs would be all in the basket. And of course the soda turf was a part of Ireland. That was the part that they were bringing with them. Now they could bring a bit of clay, but the soda turf most people brought with them for luck.
Of course the neighbours, when they'd come in, some of them would have money to give, some of them wouldn't have money, but the odd one that would be a bit rich might give them a half a crown, and a half a crown was money like magic that time. And you'd often see people coming home maybe 50 or 60 years later, and they'd still have kept that half a crown because they had kept it for the luck's money going to them, and it did bring them luck.
Well, it was 30 pence. That was 30 old pennies in a half a crown. You know, so I mean, the 30 pence was a big, you know.
A lot of money that time. Wouldn't you think you'd have brought home a better besom than that?
Well, now I'll tell you one thing. I was up in the bog the other day, and the heather wasn't good this year. With the bad year, things are not good. And as you know yourself, it has been raining every day since. And to add to that, we have our son leaving, and we have 9 more left, and God knows where we're going from here. Things aren't good. It's not a great year here. Things are...
He'll be all right.
Oh, he'll be all right. Don't worry, Maggie. You have no need to worry. We're together. That's all that counts. And we have the other 9 children to take care of. And when he gets over there, he will send home money, and we will be okay. Don't worry about that. And I'll advise him before we go.
You know, we might ask the musicians to play a few tunes.
Do. Good on you.
They were great to come in tonight. Above all the nights ever came in tonight to play a few tunes.
It's a great village and a great parish. They're very, very kind to us, and everybody is good. And that's one thing about the parish. They've been with us 100%. So hopefully everything will go.
And the neighbours were mighty.